Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we have an episode that most people probably don't care about, but it's one that I really enjoy. We're doing the 2021 Giants Awards. So we got most outstanding offense and defense, most underrated, most improved, most underwhelming, and then rookie of the year. And then we're going to do our inside linebacker review to pair with it. Justin, how are you feeling? We're recording this before the Sunday slate of playoff games. Hopefully no big news happens, and then we have to postpone this episode.
I look like crap, Bobby Skinner. Hi, good morning to you. Good day to everybody who's...
Hit the thumbs up if you agree with Justin.
Hit the thumbs up if you agree that I look like shit every day and all day. Yeah, nobody deserves, I guess, MVP, right? I mean, we're doing offensive...
We always just do offensive and defensive MVP.
But we're doing most outstanding. We're changing it this year.
See, I got rid of the value because then you would get a lot of Daniel Jones votes on offense, and I just want the best player on offense that year. I don't want to do the technically like that. Daniel Jones is the most valuable player on offense. He's not the most outstanding player
because we were scoring a whopping 18 points per game with him and 2 offensive touchdowns, and that went down to 9, and then it was
I think it got down to less. Like I think it might have been actually. I think it went down to 9.2 points per game. We're literally scoring half the amount of points.
Yeah, so it went from a whopping 2 offensive touchdowns with Daniel Jones to 1, and I would say that makes him pretty valuable.
Yeah, so we'll get into all that, and then the inside linebacker review, which is basically just going to be a Tay Crowder conversation, and then some cleanup on the other guys. Before we get into the awards, though, Justin, we have some new members of the whole family. And we got 6 of them. 3 of the 6 are in the World Beater tier.
Wow.
How about that? We got David Weiss. He's very wise. He's Weiss.
Mm-hmm.
Devin
Bill Burr.
Marty Malella. I think he lost his card information, so he had to recreate a new Patreon account, but we'll say your name twice,
Is this the same Marty as... Remember Bridge Marty?
No, this isn't him, I don't think.
Aw.
Ethan Audie. Ooh, that's a very familiar name. And then we got Michael with no last name. You know, my cousin, who was like my best friend growing up, his name is Michael. And then one time in school, someone said, Michael, motorcycle, turn the key and watch him pee. And my cousin Michael punched him in the face on the spot.
Nice.
He's now in prison. And the final one, we have Ethan Tyler, who has 2 first names, which we're a big 2 first name podcast. Justin, who are these first names imprisoned Burr people?
Related to Steven Tyler. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. Think we need to bring back voicemails just so we can get an update on Marty on if the Giants caused him to jump off that bridge that he was contemplating jumping off in 2020. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. Thank you to our patrons. Come hang out with us. Watch the shows live if you want to get some intimate chats, because the shows, hopefully, they're going to be slowing down, I guess, in a month. That's a lot. I mean, I guess they're not going to be slowing down soon because we're still looking for GMs, still looking for head coach, or come watch with us live, hang out with us live when we hire the GM, when we hire the head coach. Those are going to be exciting. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants plus some other tiers. Thank you to our patrons.
All right, Justin, let's get into the awards. Like I said, we have Rookie of the Year, Most Underwhelming, Most Improved, Most Underrated, Defensive Most Outstanding, and Offensive Most Outstanding. And we try to maybe have some different answers, so we're not just being like, oh, look, we agree on everything on this. But for Offensive Most Outstanding, we can't disagree, right? The listeners... Andrew Thomas got 108 votes. Daniel Jones got 2. Devontae Booker got 1. It's Andrew Thomas, right? I mean, he was by far the best player on this offense. I don't think you can make an argument for anyone else, really.
Who voted for Devontae Booker?
I don't know. Someone trying to be a smartass or something. And all the smartass ones, I didn't count them. Like, They're not getting counted. We're taking this serious.
Yes, had Andrew Thomas on PFF, which... Hey, you know, we gotta unfortunately go with PFF when we're looking at offensive line stats, since nobody really else keeps them, and I don't like looking at pass block win rate or run block win rate. 2 sacks allowed, 4 QB hits, 13 hurries per PFF. One of the sacks was against Tampa Bay, and then the other sack was against Robert Quinn, who was going after the franchise record. And then for like half those reps and those 16 reps all game, Andrew Thomas dumped Robert Quinn on the ground anyway. So phenomenal year. I think he's one of, I think I did a stat at one point where he was like one of 10 offensive tackles or 10 left tackles to only allow like 1 sack in the middle of the year. And this was towards the latter part of the year. So missed a couple games due to an ankle injury, but played through that injury. And he was a stud all year. And you could see towards the beginning part of the season, how well Daniel Jones was operating, how somewhat well the offense was operating, and then when he was gone, it felt like the season started to derail from there.
Thomas is an awesome player. And he's not just winning this award because the rest of the offense is bad. Like, if Kenny Galladay had 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, would he get some votes? Yes. But the answer would still be Andrew Thomas. You mentioned the 2 sacks. One was in the second to last play of the game versus the Buccaneers and total garbage time. And the other one was against Robert Quinn, who, again, was his only purpose of that game was to get the Bears sack record. Like, every play, he was not playing the run. He was just, I'm going to try and dip around this edge. And Andrew Thomas put him on the ground 6 times.
He was dumping him.
And even on that play, it was like, Glennon could have stepped up and that didn't happen. But, 2 sacks allowed. He was a dominant force this year. Now, there's some more to be desired in the run game, but part of the reason he didn't have a great game year in the run game is because they're like, okay, this is the only guy we can trust. Let's just single block him on the defensive end, which is just never a block where you're going to blow people up unless you're Mekhi Becton. So, like, he didn't get to work. Like, he was a better run blocker in 2020 because they let him, block with Shane Lemieux and work double teams and down block and stuff. Like, that's a big reason why. So it's not like there's more to be desired in the run game, but he wasn't a bad run blocker. Like, do you remember, like, there's a couple times where he, whiffed and fell on his knees, but that happens for every single player. And honestly, if he was on a good team, and because, I got into the debate on Friday that, like Tristan Wirfs made All-Pro at right tackle. Well, guess what? If Andrew Thomas didn't have the narratives from his rookie year, which does matter for offensive line play, because people don't watch offensive line play. And you know what they definitely don't watch? Offensive line play on the New York Giants. If he had the benefit of the doubt of having some good press his rookie season, if he got to play right tackle and was on a Super Bowl winning team, he would be getting All-Pro votes. Now, Tristan Wirfs, if he played left tackle, he wouldn't be getting All-Pro votes either. Because left tackle is where the best tackles play. And it's such a more valuable position.
Yep.
Like, left tackle is a much more valuable position than right tackle. Right tackle is very important, but left tackle is much more important. And Justin, we did our redraft segment last year of how we'd redraft the 2020 draft. Maybe I was being biased, but I was like, I'm sticking with Andrew Thomas. Like, by the end of the year, he was better than Becton and Jedrick Wills. And he wasn't as good as Wirfs, but Wirfs played that right tackle role. And I always expected Thomas to need to get better at some things. He was a very consistent player. He got better as his rookie year went on, and then got better on top of that. And I'm just so proud of his second year. To think we were panicking about this guy after a preseason game, and now he's the cornerstone of the franchise.
You weren't panicking about him. You said exactly.
I was a little worried, but I wasn't panicked.
You said exactly what I think that they were working on after that Pats game. He had a little bit of a bad game, but you looked at it and you were like, well, Andrew Thomas is doing some things that are different than what made him a little bit successful towards the latter part of the season in 2020. So you're like, I don't think he's going to continue to do that. And I think they're just working on some stuff. And lo and behold,
they're making him more consistent, and it worked.
Yeah, I think you were proven right.
End of his rookie season, he was winning off of his athleticism and strength. This year, he was using those, but he was using every pass set was consistent. Every single pass set was consistent, man. So I'm like really proud of his second year, and I'm just so excited for his future going forward. And he's easily the offensive most outstanding player. 4
QB hits and 13 hurries also per PFF, and they do like to overestimate those, hurries, QB hits, and sacks. So just outstanding year, and the Giants can win some football games next year. Hopefully, he gets more national recognition for being a stud. And still, I feel like the thing that was still looming over him is an injury, like all year. It was through 2020 and then also 2021. Missed a few games with that ankle injury. He didn't wind up missing any games his rookie year, but still play the majority of the season with that ankle injury. Let's stay healthy next year, and let's see what we can do when we're healthy.
Love it. All right, defensive most outstanding player. Listeners went Xavier McKinney got 96 votes, Adoree Jackson got 7, Leonard Williams got 6, James Bradbury had 3, Aziz had 2. Justin, I put most outstanding because this guy didn't play the full season, but he was a shut-down corner. Now, we can talk about most valuable, and maybe that goes to Bradbury, but most outstanding was Adoree Jackson to me.
Really?
I know he only had the 1 interception, but he was a shut-down corner. He was holding, like, we were playing some good offenses, holding his receiver to less than 20 yards. That's when the defense was at its best. When we're, like, putting together, like, per game stretch, when Andrew Thomas was down and we were, playing the Chiefs and the Panthers and the Raiders, Adoree Jackson was just flat out balling. And he came back in the last game of the year, by the way, and no one even realized because he didn't get any passes thrown on him. Like, he was a shutdown corner this year. So Adoree Jackson, to me, was my most outstanding player. I almost went with McKinney or Bradbury. I think you can make arguments for both of those, but Adoree Jackson is my most outstanding defensive player.
He had 8 pass deflections, which is the third most in his career. He had 17 his rookie year. He had 10 in 2018. And you look at that, it's like, well, it didn't make a lot of plays on the ball. But let me listen to this. And I was researching and preparing for this on a nice Saturday night. And 38 completions allowed on 73 targets in 13 games. I mean, that is almost, if you want to look at the 16-game rate that usually is, that's almost a full season, and that's a 52.1 completion rate allowed, 9.3 yards per target, 4.8 yards per target, 69 quarterback rating allowed, which sometimes, for quarterbacks, I'm like, quarterback rating doesn't really matter, but I do think it can sometimes be a good snapshot, especially if it's really down like that. 69 quarterback rating allowed for Adoree Jackson. Didn't allow those big plays, didn't allow touchdowns, and really, really important, really, really key. Average depth of target was 10.7. So that's solid. That's really, really good.
He had career best in every single category, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when the defense was at its best.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you went there. I wanted to give it to him, but I didn't fully commit on Adoree Jackson. But I'm glad you went there, because he really was, especially when you look at the advanced metrics. If you look at just the tackles and the pass deflections, you're like, oh, Adoree Jackson had better years. And even AV, approximate value, that's a metric that I kind of like from Pro Football Reference. It's helpful to look at AV, like when we're doing these GM searches and we're looking at these draft classes, it's helpful to look at AV of like, oh, look at this 5th-round player with a really good AV from the draft class of 2018. So even though that was the third best of his career, still you look at those advanced metrics and the completion rate, 52.1, where this Patrick Graham defense, I typically think of this Graham defense as corners who get targeted a lot, but they're not allowing big plays. So they can get targeted a lot and their completion rates can be kind of high, but they're not allowing big plays. Adoree Jackson, he was targeted, but he didn't even allow completions. It was, it basically was a coin flip on if he allowed a completion. That is awesome, and that is not something that we have seen from this Graham defense. And that was the addition of Adoree Jackson, bringing that element to this defense.
Who's yours?
Mine is Xavier McKinney. I wanted to go Jackson, but I couldn't. The fact that McKinney played 17 games and yeah, Jackson was there for also the middle part of the stretch of the season as well. But when the defense really started to turn it on, like post-Carolina Panther game, that is when we started talking about Xavier McKinney playing at this really, really good, high-level player, caliber type of player. So his completion rate now, it's a little sketch to look at completion rates and targets when we're talking about safeties.
Yeah, you basically
center
can't
field
look at it.
But, let's compare it from last year, Bobby. Pro Football Reference had him on the hook for 12 completions on 13 targets. That's 92.3. This year, they had him on the hook for 38 completions allowed on 56 targets. That's 67.9%. It's quite a dramatic difference, and I think for a center field safety, that's pretty good. Also, yards per completion for center field safety, 11.7 yards per completion. I think that's pretty good, and the average depth of target being 9.6. So that number being less than 10, I consider that a plus. When you're targeted, you're keeping that under 10. Quarterback rating, 72.2, allowing 3 touchdowns, but the 5 interceptions were key, and there were some key interceptions that came in key moments. He did have some dropped interceptions, and that was towards, I think, more or less heavy in the first part of the season, but playing that position, that's a hard position to play. Center field or just deep safety, whether he's sharing that responsibility with Logan Ryan, I think that's a really, really hard position to play. I think in its most notable, we saw Antoine Bethea really struggled it. A pro's pro, Antoine Bethea, really, really struggled with it and was the worst safety in the National Football League in 2019 in James Betcher's defense. McKinney struggles with the first quarter of the season, really gets it going, really gets his sea legs under him, and he becomes a very, dare I say, valuable player for this Giants defense and this whole mission that you should have in the National Football League of preventing the big play. Xavier McKinney did that, plus he made some plus plays with forcing turnovers, getting pass deflections, also had 10 pass deflections.
I have some takes on Xavier McKinney, but I might be saving them for a different award, and they have to do with that award. So I will save my takes on McKinney. Next award, most underrated. This is a tough one because the team was so bad that anyone who was probably pretty good is going to be properly rated because we're looking for someone to be good. The listeners went Adoree Jackson, which I think might be the right answer, but I picked him for defensive MVP, so I didn't want to pick him again. With 22 votes, Devontae Booker got 15, Austin Johnson got 13, as well as Julian Love, and then Daniel Jones got 8. Who's your answer for this?
You know what? I was prepared to have 2 answers, and I really didn't care which one I was going to go with, and I was going to go based on how everybody else picked. So I'm going to go with James Bradbury.
That's a good answer.
I'm going to go with James Bradbury. So, played 15 games last year, was targeted 91 times. 17 games this year, targeted 115 times. So, he was, I think, if you put it on the 16-game basis and compare it to 2020 and 2021, he was targeted probably a little bit more this year, but I would still say it's relatively the same. Allowed 71 completions, 61.7 completion rate. 2020, it was 61.5%. So the completion rate was basically relatively the same. The yards per target was 0.9 of a yard more. The yards per target since 2018, it was the most throughout his entire career, throughout that 4-year span since Pro Football Reference started keeping track of it. His average depth of target, however, when he was targeted, was the least since 2018, was the least this year throughout his entire career. He also had 4 interceptions, which was a career high for him. How many pass deflections did he have? He had 17 pass deflections. 2020, he had 18. So James Bradbury did not have the All-Pro Pro Bowl year that he had in 2020. He allowed 8 touchdowns. He allowed some touchdowns, and the plays that he allowed were like, oh my God, James Bradbury just allowed a really big play. And that's bad, and then you get mad at him. But still wasn't consistent enough for me to say James Bradbury is a bad corner. Like, those big plays weren't like, I don't think he's a part of the answer. I still think James Bradbury is the number 1 corner for the New York Football Giants. Is he a top 5, top 10 corner? Maybe we shouldn't expect that every single year. But James Bradbury can still be a number 1 corner for the New York Football Giants. I hope we bring in a defensive coordinator that does things that fit to his strengths because he is a very good football player alongside Adoree Jackson. He still makes plays on the football. He made some key interceptions this year. He's still, just like everybody in the secondary, he dropped interceptions that he should have caught. James Bradbury is still a valuable player, and I think now, whereas last year we were calling him the most valuable player, now he's underrated.
Yeah, and you can make an argument that he is still like the most valuable player on the defense, but it's like Adoree Jackson, I have the most outstanding, but he did get to play against wide receiver 2s. So if you put Adoree on wide receiver 1 and Bradbury on wide receiver 2, maybe the conversation flips. So yeah, I think that's a good one because of those reasons.
Yeah.
This one,
an approximate value, like I talked about a little while ago, approximate value for Pro Football Reference has James Bradbury as this is his second most valuable year with an AV of 7, and then in 2020 it was 10. So I think that just shows how bananas his 2020 was. 2021 he kind of came back to earth, but he was still the kind of player that he has been throughout his entire career, and still not a bad football player.
Most underrated for me. This is a tough one because, like I said, anyone who was played well got, I feel like, properly rated. So Adoree Jackson's probably the right answer, but I did vote him for defensive most outstanding. And I wrote down Tay Crowder because I think his PFF grade and him being at that linebacker 1 has put him in the doghouse, and we're going to talk about that later with the inside linebacker review. But I'm going to do someone who had I think a better year than Tay Crowder, partly because when I tweet this out, I don't want people telling me that Tay Crowder's not underrated. I'm going to go Austin Johnson. He's not Dalvin Tomlinson, but he filled into that role nicely. There wasn't bad Austin Johnson plays. He didn't get moved off the ball. he wasn't like Dalvin where he was blowing centers up, but he turned into some sack production, some tackle for a loss production. Like, he was a good, solid player, but because he plays that nose tackle role and didn't have like that definitive, like I'm a New York Giant captain Dalvin Tomlinson role, and people missing Dalvin, I feel like he kind of just got overlooked. But I think Austin Johnson played up to his contract this year. So I'm going to go Austin Johnson for my most underrated.
And you kind of took my thunder there, because Austin Johnson is my most improved player. I just figured that just made the most logical sense. I mean, this guy went from 1 sack in 2020 to 3.5. I mean, that's more than triple the production. He had 18 tackles in 2020, 72 tackles in 2021, which had to be among the league's best. Like, Austin Johnson played 57% of the snaps in 2021, but had 72 tackles, had 7 QB hits, 6 tackles for loss, which that was 3 times the amount that he had in 2020, only 2 tackles for loss, and he had an AV of 9. And the best that he ever had in his career was 2018. He had an AV of 5, and he played, started 9 games, 16 games total, played 38% of the snaps. This year he played 57% of the snaps, also played 25% of the special team snaps too. So, like you said, I mean, this guy he played up to his contract. I think the production was very much kind of centered towards the first half of the season. Maybe the second half of the season, last quarter of the season, he kind of really disappeared. Along with the rest, I feel like, of the defensive line and these edge rushers, which we can talk about. But Austin Johnson, most improved from last year, from thinking that I have that sour taste in my mouth from that Bears game where he was in the game and the Bears just ran the ball down our throats and drove down the field towards the latter part of the game. And I'm screaming on the podcast, why is Austin Johnson in the game? And now he's a guy where I'm like, I want to keep this guy around.
Your most improved is Austin Johnson. There's 2 ways of looking at this award. It can be from last year to this year, or from the start of the season to the end of the season. And last year I did, my most improved was Isaac Udon. People are like, what? I was like, the dude went from bench to being like a cornerback 2 who you're not like terrified of playing out there. So I went with someone who I was extremely critical of at the start of the year. Because he wasn't on TV screens, people didn't see the mistakes he was making, but he was making serious mistakes. And he had 2 touchdowns, essentially, that he gave up, taken off the board. KJ Hamlin versus the Broncos dropped that touchdown. And then the Marquez Callaway touchdown in the Saints game that got called back on the holding on Leonard Williams. Xavier McKinney was not a good safety the first 4 or 5 games of this season. The first 4 games or so of this season, Xavier McKinney was a bad safety. He wasn't playing with instincts. He was screwing up the too high looks, which I'm sure drove Patrick Graham crazy. He was biting on stuff that he shouldn't have. And then by the end of the year, he's the player you're probably most excited about on the defense, playing with instincts, being able to play that center field spot with range, getting from sideline to sideline, understanding zone coverages, passing them off, not getting beat on those too high beaters. Like, Xavier McKinney from start of the season to end of the season went from a player who I was disappointed in. Why are people not mad? I was like, why are people not as disappointed with Xavier McKinney? I know the answer is because that deep safety spot's not on TV a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, now this guy is just a playmaker. He is a consistent playmaker at that deep safety spot, which is so hard to find. It's really hard to find a safety who can play that deep role and be able to also make plays, but also stop you from giving up plays. Because a lot of times it's like, okay, they're not going to get beat deep, but they don't make any plays on the ball, or they make plays on the ball, but they make huge mistakes. McKinney found that balance towards the end of the year, and he's my most improved. The listeners went Thomas with 70, McKinney for 21, Lorenzo Carter got 5, Crowder got 4, and Julian Love got 2.
Do you think there are people that are screaming at their phones right now, or whatever you're watching on, about saying Evan Ingram? Because there are people that really think that Evan Ingram did not have a bad year.
Well, he didn't have any drop passes, but he didn't do anything really good either.
You can make an argument for most improved for Evan Ingram.
Just not dropping the ball.
Because if you look at the, I said this point a million times over the 2020 offseason about how Evan Ingram was the most costly target in the National Football League on an EPA basis, where he cost his team the most expected points added. Whereas this year he did not. He was not the most costly player to target in the National Football League. So if you want to look at most improved from an analytical sense, probably can give it to Evan Ingram.
Yeah, he just didn't have a good enough year for me to be like, all right,
no.
Let me go on it. Most underwhelming. So I wanted to do this Leonard Williams, but I was like, it's just this is the most there's so many guys who can win this one.
You'd be forcing it if you did Leonard Williams.
Yeah, the listeners. I was actually surprised with what I wasn't surprised with number one. They went Kenny Galladay, got 46 votes. You know who got second?
Who?
Will Hernandez. Now he definitely was underwhelming from like we expect him to at least be like an average. Like kind of fall into like some games are gonna be a below average guard, some games are better than average. He did have his worst year by far, so I get it. But also it's like year 4, and no, I don't think anyone should have expected him to be good. Barkley got 10, Ryan got 8, Parrott got 5, and I'm going first because I want to steal this from you if you were gonna say it. Saquon Barkley for me. Did you see the stat going around the other day that since 2018? No one has more 50-plus yard plays than Saquon Barkley.
He didn't have any in 2020. He didn't have any in 2021.
One receiving touchdown. So the last 2 years he has 1, and he's still leading the most. Were those O-lines good in 2018 and 19?
No.
Saquon's expected to play above that. Yeah, he dealt with ankle injuries in 2019. I know he's coming off the injury, but Saquon averaged less than 4 yards per carry. He tied for the leading rusher with less carries than the backup. He had less catches than the backup and had less yards, or had one more catch and less yards than Devontae Booker. To me, there's no player I'm more underwhelmed with than Saquon Barkley. I understand the Galladay didn't get the touchdown and stuff, but he was the leading receiver, and I do think he was misused really badly, and then Daniel Jones got hurt. Saquon Barkley, man, I understand coming off injury, but to me, it's like, I expect more out of you. I expect more out of you. Where I think the number one thing that's done this offseason, personnel-wise, should be setting up a trade for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you tell me that we're in a world in the month of August, if you tell me that we're in a world where Saquon Barkley gets less yards than Devontae Booker, I'm like, okay, then Saquon Barkley was hurt. But if you tell me that Saquon Barkley also got 5 more carries than Devontae Booker and he somehow had less yards, I'm like, you're full of shit. I just don't believe you. But that's the world that we're living in. And again, it's the previous regime put the expectation on him that the running back and this guy can make the quarterback better. He can make the offensive line better. He can make the defense better. He can make everybody better. And that's not a fair expectation to put on a running back. But not even looking at it from the value conversation, Saquon Barkley should be better, and he does have to be better.
There should be more big plays.
Flat out the truth.
I understand if he's not hitting the whole, he's not getting the 2-3 extra yards, but he should have those big plays too. I put together a highlight film of 2019 and left out a good chunk of plays that would have been like the top ones of 2021. And it's like, man, this guy is amazing. It's like, no matter what you think of the running back spot, this guy is amazing, spectacular. Even dealing with, and this year he's just a bad running back, just a bad running back overall. He had essentially one good game versus the Saints, and even what was the Eagles game where he had barely over 100 yards at the end of the season. It's like It's like they handed the ball off 24 times. I'm not gonna celebrate him getting over that 100-yard mark. It was a decent game. But it wasn't some really good Saquon Barkley game.
All right.
Who's yours?
I got to go Kenny Galladay.
Okay.
I got to. Now, how much of it is his fault? How much of it is quarterback play?
I was hoping you'd go Logan Ryan.
No. How can you not go Kenny Galladay? Because I was gonna go Saquon Barkley, just because I don't want to do this. I don't want to give it to Kenny Galladay. But Bobby, the stat line from this year: 37 catches, 76 targets, 48.7 catch rate. Remember how we were saying towards the beginning part of the season that he has the 75%?
Yeah, it was his career best through the first 5 or 6 weeks.
It was his career best by 20%, over 20%. And now he finishes with his career worst in catch percentage. That's why I don't fully want to do this. Because towards the beginning part of the season, even though he was still getting criticized by Giants fans, Kenny Galladay was having a solid season. I actually maybe want to go back. I don't like to do this, what you usually do, Bobby. But after the Saints game, which is 4 games in, I want to do a 16-game rate. And I want to see what would that season look like, because he started out the season 4 for 6, 3 catches on 8 targets, 4 for 5, 6 for 7 against the Saints. And against the Saints, it was a triple-digit game, 116-yard game. And, he didn't catch any big plays, but he had yards after the catch. Him and Tony were like yards after the catch. They did things differently, where Tony was shifty. Alday was like that big bruiser who would get the yards after contact, and he would be thumping down the field. And it was fun. He was having a solid start to the season. And then, he gets hurt and he misses time and just isn't the same after that. And Daniel Jones misses time. And I put it on quarterback play also because you can talk more about this. You do need to have quarterback play that can execute those back shoulder throws, right, and also being able to locate jump balls so you can put Kenny Golladay in an optimal situation to go up and catch a football. It doesn't always need to be a perfectly thrown ball. And the quarterback that seemed to get it the most was Jake Fromm, and that's sad.
3 of his top 3 receiving performances were week 1, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Where it's like at that point of the season, we're like, man, it sucks we haven't got the touchdown yet. But it's like, man, he's playing well, though. Like, he's playing well. And never got the fact that he didn't get a touchdown blows me away. Like, that is insane that didn't happen.
I know. We signed this guy to transform the offense. I mean, that was the idea. I mean, go back to that March episode where the Giants signed Kenny Golladay, and we're saying that this guy can transform our offense, and it isn't even necessarily tied to, but can Kenny Golladay block? It's not even tied to that. It's almost just as simple as snapping the ball. And if he's one-on-one, and if you're playing single high safety against the Giants and they're not shadowing towards Kenny Golladay, throw that football up to him. I mean, that's what they did in Detroit. That's what made him...
But Jason Garrett hated back shoulder throws. Like, there was no back shoulder... Like, the only time we threw back shoulder throws was when teams jumped off sides.
And why sign him?
And then I know. It doesn't make sense. So, he's definitely underwhelming. But the thing to me is why I don't have him as the most underwhelming is because... And he wouldn't even be my second place. I'd probably have, maybe fourth. It's just like you said, the QBs didn't throw him back shoulder. I'll have back shoulder opportunities, and he hated Jason Garrett. By the way, that was reported on. Like, he hated Jason Garrett. Like, he wanted to make it clear. Like, I wasn't yelling at Daniel Jones. I was yelling at Jason Garrett. Like, we thought that Galladay would hopefully change the way we played this offense, and it just didn't. It just didn't, which is pretty frustrating.
Yeah, instead of end zone fades being practiced in training camp next year, because that's all that they were doing, just end zone fades, end zone fades, end zone fades. Let's practice on these back shoulder throws. Let's run routes and let's get some different combination of back shoulder throws, working on here, where Galladay's got to contort, and based on a situation, based on yard distance, etc. Let's be practicing that during training camp this year. Even if Kenny Galladay's hurt and he's limping throughout the entire thing. Because that was annoying last year. Oh, okay, great. They're practicing their chemistry on end zone fades. Great.
And when you got 3rd and 7 and they're giving you the double A-gap mug look, okay, fine. We're throwing that to Galladay. That's the play, is we're throwing the ball to Kenny Galladay on the sideline. Yeah. So unless you want to bring those safeties up and bring those linebackers out, that's what we're doing on those plays. All right, Rookie of the Year. The listeners went Azeez with 110 votes. Kadarius Toney got 5. Aaron Robinson got 1. This is Azeez Ojulari all the way, and I won't accept any other answer. He led the team in sacks and tackles for a loss. Azeez Ojulari is the Rookie of the Year. I would love for it to be Kadarius Toney, but he didn't play enough games.
I'm approaching this award as the rookie that I'm most excited about heading into next year. So I was doing some stat research last night, and Azeez Ojulari had 27 pressures, 13 QB hits, 27 pressures, and I think he played 67% of the snaps. Those numbers need to go up, without a doubt. He needs to get more consistent pressure on the quarterback. He was double teamed. If you look at the pass rush win rate and then the double team rate, he was double teamed at one of the lowest rates in the National Football League. But the pass rush win rate was almost average, so good on him on that end. But he was double teamed at one of the least rates in the National Football League. He's got to get more pressures. He's got to get more hits on the quarterback next year. That has to happen. Hopefully, when we draft an edge this year, that can hopefully be opposite of him. Hopefully, his production can go up, and that can help. And he just takes a natural year 2 jump anyway because he's really young. But I was looking at Gregory Rousseau, who played like less than 50% of the snaps. He had 24 pressures. Azeez had 27, he had 24. So I need to see more pressure on the quarterback from Azeez. So I'm not more excited about Azeez compared to my Rookie of the Year. I'm flat out more excited about Aaron Robinson.
You're such a scumbag. That's such a scumbag thing to say. He played like 3 games.
I am more excited about Aaron Robinson. I just am. And I look at that Miami game where he played...
You can make an argument for Tony. This is a scumbag move by you.
He played 100% of the snaps. What did you say about Tony?
I said you can make the argument for Tony. It wouldn't be right, but you can make the argument. This is a scumbag move going Aaron Robinson.
I'm praying Tony makes it through the offseason, all right? That's a worry on my mind. Look at that Miami game where he played like 100% of the snaps, and he was playing outside. There was actually some more games where he played outside corner than slot corner, and I think where he should slot, no pun intended, is the slot corner. I think that's where he naturally projects. But he played slot and outside during that Miami game, and covering Jalen Waddle, making some third down stops on Jalen Waddle, going up with like 6'6", 6'5" Mike Gesicki in the back of the end zone and deflecting passes back there. Awesome tackler, good form, made some plays there. I am flat out more excited about Aaron Robinson coming out playing, I think, better than Darnay Holmes did in the slot, because they asked Aaron Robinson to do more than what they asked Darnay Holmes to do in 2020. He's a more physical football player. He covers tight ends, covers wide receivers. He can go in the slot. He can go outside. I am more excited about what Aaron Robinson can do for this football team heading into next year and the value that he can bring.
Well, this is Rookie of the Year, not Sophomore of the Year award.
Well, I changed it. I am a scumbag, so
he's not. He's 4th place. It should be Azeez 1, Kadarius 2, Quincy Roche 3.
I don't know about that.
Again, this is Rookie of the Year, not Sophomore of the Year. I hope you get lit up when you tweet that out. I really do.
No, I don't.
And you're going to get all mad and be like, "Well, and you're going to try and explain it to every single person, and they're all going to call you."
While you were sick, and you were down bad, you missed. Really,
I watched the games.
No, you didn't talk about it though, so you don't have to think about it the same way. You missed the greatness that is Aaron Robinson, and for those couple weeks when I was making those clips, I was forming the Aaron Robinson fan club, and people are not going to roast me for that because I have an Aaron Robinson fan club, and it's very strong.
You deserve to be roasted for that. All right, inside line. Oh, actually, ad. We're on to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is celebrating with a huge odds boost for the new customers. Counting down to Super Bowl 56, new customers can get 56-1 odds on any team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still get in on the action. Get in on the action for the divisional round. How about that? Get in on the action in the divisional round. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with daily DraftKings fantasy football contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code JOHNBOY, and get 56-1 odds on any NFL team. We're recording this before the Cowboys-49ers game. I would bet on the 49ers for the divisional round. They're going to win today. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code JOHNBOY for 56-1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook. Official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana 1-800-9-WITH-IT. All right, inside linebacker review. Let's talk about Tay Crowder. We'll try and go quick through this, but Tay Crowder I think deserves to be talked about. He played the entire year, like he barely missed a snap this season. 130 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, 0 sacks, 1 QB hit, and 2 interceptions. Both his interceptions were actually against running backs. Did you know that?
And he had a lot of trouble covering running backs this year.
Both his interceptions were against running backs. Like running backs throwing the ball.
Oh, that's not nice.
David Montgomery and Jalen Hurts. So, here's the very clear thing about Tay Crowder. He's not going to be good in that linebacker 1 role. But I feel like he could be good in that linebacker 2 role. Maybe not like best linebacker 2 in the role where you had like, vintage Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith type stuff. But like, look at it from him playing the entire year. He went from one sack his rookie year to 0 sacks. 3 tackles for a loss in both seasons. That should be more. Like, that's tackles for loss should be more at that linebacker 1 role. He wasn't good at it. Went from 3 QB hits to only 1 QB hit. So, like, the only thing he got improved on was total tackle, which just comes with the role of playing that inside linebacker 1 spot. So he's not good in that role. He took just too long to process what the running plays were happening, which was allowing blockers to get up into him. And then when they would block, like the Cowboys game, when they were running outside, he was just not following the guards. He was looking at the running back and was getting pinned down by tackles or tight ends, whoever's blocking him, washing him off, leading to big plays. So he doesn't fit in that role, especially with the way the Giants played more too high, so you don't have a player designated for every gap pre-snap. But I do think if you put him back in that gap, like if we get a defensive coordinator who's going to run like a one high system, you put him back in that gap role. I think he's a player who will feel better about next year next to Blake Martinez. But him not being that linebacker 1 role clearly is not good.
Yeah, he was one of the players that week by week, just by watching the broadcasts, just by watching the broadcast, or simply just by being at the game, not even watching the tape. It's just like, dude, just missed assignments, missed tackles, just not reading things the right way, or he's in a gap, but then he doesn't make a play, or even just yards after contact, just in general. I was not happy with him. And, I didn't really criticize him all that much where I'm like, I still feel like Tay Crowder can be part of an answer, where if he was drafted in the 3rd round, Bobby, I'm like, get this guy out of here. This guy's not good. He should be a backup. He should be 3rd string. Where now he's drafted 7th round and he's Mr. Irrelevant. I feel like that's why I'm saying to myself, you know what? He kind of still was interior linebacker number 1 this year, and he still kind of kept this defense afloat. And that's how I approach it in my brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I want to talk about his coverage, and I think his coverage was good. And I know coverage grades don't say that, but the PFF doesn't know what they're talking about when they're talking about linebacker coverage. Like run stops. Like let's not even look at the raw stats, like the run stops by PFF, which is like a run of 2 yards or less, I believe. He was 26 total, or 23rd total in that with 26. And then for guys who started games, I put like 50% of like whoever had the most snaps. He had the 44th best percentage, which is really bad compared to Blake. Now, don't expect him to be Blake, but Blake was 7th in that and 10th in percentage in 2020. So obviously a clear, like he missed Blake. But here's the thing. At one point in the season, I was like, and we can talk about Raglan. It's like, why don't they put him back at the inside linebacker 2 role and let Raglan play it? But I do think Patrick Graham has trust in him. Like, I think Tay Crowder's a smart player and, like, trusted him to run that huddle and call out the defenses. Like, I think he's a smart player. He's just not fit for that inside linebacker 1 role. At least not now. Maybe in year 4, year 5, Tay Crowder can turn into that. Not like a really good Blake Martinez type, but like a solid one. But he's just not that right now in the run game. Like, the run game struggled with him being the number 1.
I do think he played better with Jalen Smith. Is that a bad take?
No, it's not. And we'll talk about Jalen Smith was the only linebacker to really fly around on this team. We'll talk about him last. Like, the other 3 guys that we have to talk about are free agents, and then Carter Coughlin, who really didn't play.
Yeah, let's just acknowledge that. I'm glad you brought him up. Man, it's a shame that he's not on here. I thought that he was gonna, play 25% of the snaps this year, where he can come in on 3rd downs.
15. Like, they used him a little bit, and he had some, like, a couple of nice pass rush moves, but he got hurt. So, that being said, Tay Crowder's he's a pretty decent coverage linebacker. Like, he understands zones. He understands not covering grass and covering a man. He understands not just looking at the defender, but turning your head to the QB. He's also not stare at the QB and let guys run behind you. Like, he's got good understanding for that type of thing. Like, do you remember Tay Crowder blowing any coverages over the middle this year? Like,
no, not over the on the sidelines, a different story, but over the middle.
Here's where he got screwed, especially in the early season. When the Giants were trying to play man, and they would motion the running back out, and Tay Crowder, he got beat on some of those plays. I think like Washington.
J.D. McKissick, Washington, huge play. I mean, that you can make an argument that cost us the game outside of the Darius Slayton drop pass and then the Dexter Lawrence offsides.
But I just kind of view that more as like putting a player in a bad situation more.
Yeah,
so
I
than
agree with that. Yeah,
so like he got better as the year went on. So he is a decent coverage linebacker, and I think now again, with where I'm at with Tay Crowder, is if they upgrade inside linebacker too, like draft someone in the second, third round, and he's the third guy, cool.
Yes, I agree.
But if they don't view that as a pressing need, and Blake Martinez is around, and he's the second guy, cool too. Like, I understand, we can't, Blake Martinez got hurt, but Blake Martinez didn't miss a snap for 4 straight years. It'd be one thing if we had a Sterling Shepard injury, a profile on Blake Martinez. Then I would think we got to really upgrade there. But hopefully Blake's back. Maybe not the same, but still good, and he can play that number 2 role. Or if they want to upgrade in the draft, he's that number 3 role, which I don't think anyone else would have complaints about him at the 3 role.
No, and you talk about this every year, especially when we get to training camp. That interior linebacker depth chart, it's going to be sorted through. It's going to be gone through. Carter Coughlin got hurt. Blake Martinez got hurt. Jalen Smith winds up coming in and being interior linebacker number 2 by the end of the year. So that depth chart's going to be going through. So if Tay Crowder's number 3 next year, he's going to play. He's going to probably have a somewhat of a significant role eventually, and that'll be a good thing that he'll be third in line.
Raglan and McKinney I want to go through quickly. Raglan's 28 years old. He's going to be a free. He's a free agent. 67 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 QB hit. Like I said before, I always thought the defense could benefit, and if this was Madden, putting him at the inside linebacker 1 and Crowder the 2. But I don't think Graham trusted him. He was better fit for that taking on the run game, but he was so bad in coverage. He was a 0 in coverage. He just didn't have the athleticism for it. He just didn't cover ground well. He was a bad player in coverage, and that's why I think Patrick Graham didn't play him more. And why they went out and got a Bernard McKinney and even a Jalen Smith and gave those reps to those guys. So he's going to be a free agent. I don't see him being back. And it's just frustrating. Patrick Graham never seemed to trust him, and the fact that he was worse in coverage than the other 3 guys, to be quite honest.
Yeah. I think I said during the summer that his main weakness was coverage, and I think you dispelled it, but I'm going to say that I was right.
I definitely didn't say he was good. I didn't say he was flat out horrible in coverage, but I definitely didn't say he was good in coverage. He's good at taking on contact more than the other guys. Maybe not McKinney, but taking on contact. But it's when you're running light boxes, you're not put in those situations. And when you're the number 2 guy, I need you to kind of play fast and flow and not just take on contact and shed that way. Yeah. If we're just doing an offensive line versus inside linebacker shedding drill, yeah, he probably wins that over Tay Crowder. But everything else Tay Crowder was better at. And including, I think, running the defense, which, again, there's a reason why Blake Martinez spoke so highly of Tay his rookie year. And Patrick Graham, didn't even flinch at giving that role to someone else other than Tay Crowder. So, Raglan, gone or back next year?
Gone.
Bernard McKinney, he was signed mid-season. Played a long time for the Texans and then was cut by the Dolphins. He only played 27 more snaps than Jalen Smith. 29 tackles, a tackle for a loss. He could shed blocks all right. He was just so slow to get there.
He had
and
some
he wasn't
nice
good
hits.
in coverage either. Huh?
He had some nice hits.
He had 1 or 2.
Yeah. I count that as some.
I don't know. I don't even want to talk about him, to be honest.
Kansas City, didn't he have he had some fun plays against Kansas City.
We'll always have Kansas City with Bernard McKinney.
There you go.
Gone or back?
Gone.
I'm going to say back in camp.
Ooh, back. Back in the...
Jalen Smith. Did you know Jalen Smith is still only 26 years old?
Love that.
That's crazy. 19 tackles, a tackle for a loss, a sack, a QB hit. Basically played 3.5 games for the Giants. He was flying around. He was paying fast to the ball. I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to bring him back, because I think someone might watch those 4 games of tape with a better roster and try and bring Jalen Smith in. Or he can view this as I can play next to Blake Martinez and be that number 2 role. I have no idea if I should get excited about Jalen Smith or just shut my mouth about Jalen Smith. I kind of want to, I don't want to get excited about him because I feel like I could get let down because he did have serious issues. But those 2 games, he flew around. He wasn't some game changer that he was in Dallas, but he was flying around and playing faster than other guys. Maybe him next to Blake next year could be a nice little combo.
I'm excited about it. He's back.
He's back in the. I just can't, I can't. I've been too broken by this team to get excited about a Jalen Smith.
I mean, really, the expectation, if he is back, right? the expectation would be interior linebacker number 3. Or you just compete with Tay Crowder. And I still bring him back, even if his free agency comes before the draft. Jalen Smith still doesn't change the fact that if you want to draft the Devin Lloyd, you do that. It still doesn't change it.
Or even, second round guy or third round guy.
Doesn't change that for me. So then you have...
You can't give him any guaranteed money, though. And I think that's why he might go to like another team for like that has like a $500,000 guaranteed or something.
Giants could be in a world where it's Blake Martinez, a rookie, Tay Crowder, Jalen Smith. And I would love that world.
But I don't think Jalen Smith would love that world.
Well, he got cut. He got cut by 2 teams, not just 1. 2.
The Cowboys is understandable. The Packers, I don't know what went wrong there. I don't know. I think someone will give him like, $500,000 to $750,000 guaranteed with incentives, and the Giants aren't in a spot to do that.
Shame. Hopefully nobody watches that film. Like, Giants stink. You don't want to watch. Just don't watch it. We will.
All right, that's an episode. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you. The next episode will probably be the Giants have hired a GM.
I hope that they hire the GM on a Thursday and not a Friday. If they hire the GM on a Friday, you're going to have a Saturday episode. Right? That's going to happen?
Best case scenario would be on a Tuesday. We have an episode Tuesday night, put it on Wednesday, and then the presser is on Thursday, and then we could put a presser episode out on Friday.
Are you saying of this week? They're
Yes.
not hiring. They're not hiring the GM Tuesday.
Why not?
Because they need to do second round of interviews. They've only done 1 round. Their Adam Peters is being interviewed.
1 round ends on Monday.
Yeah, Adam Peters is being interviewed on Monday when everybody's listening to this, and then I think they would
bring
probably
Shane in Tuesday and be like, all right, this is our guy. We're going with it.
Oh, just not even interview anybody else for round 2, just Joe Shane.
I don't know. But anyways, whatever happens, we'll take care of it. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Until then, let's go Big Blue.